Hey, what's up everyone? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the SDCC Marvel Legends exclusive Medusa figure. She uses like the exact same body as Storm, as the new X-Men figure Storm, minus the boots. She's got boots on her feet, which look like they are probably from Emma Frost, and maybe the body is the same one as Satana. I still don't remember for sure, but it's a really good body. I love the anatomy of this body. They did a good job with the musculature. It's not super chesty, which I think is good because oftentimes the figures they make, not necessarily Hasbro, but other companies, just throw a big old pair of boobies on a figure and try to get it to sell that way. This one is much more realistic looking, so I do appreciate that. And it has nice sculpt work, so that's good. So the main thing that's unique about this figure is the head. And the hair, obviously. So they did a good job with the head sculpt. I think it's a pretty nice rendition of the character. The painted eyes and everything, the lipstick, the eyebrows, it all looks pretty good. It's a little ugly where the seam of the hair is right here. Not this seam from the mold. The seam, the way they just have these kind of bangs folded over, it looks a little weird. Maybe that's how it looked in the comics. I don't remember it looking quite so awkward, but that's not a big deal. That's not what I wanted to talk about. The hair itself is sculpted really well. That would have been a pain in the butt to sculpt if they didn't do it digitally, and it turned out nicely. Very nicely, in fact. Can I zoom out some more? Yeah, it looks really good. There's a whole lot of hair. You know, it's almost as long as the figure. I'll give you a height measurement in a minute. So the hair sculpt is good. I wish that they didn't do the shading by using a wash, because as you can see, this is a good example right here. When you use a wash, it's not very even, it's not very uniform. You get some spots where it's really heavily shaded, like there, and then some spots where there's not so much shading at all. So that, you see how it's kind of like speckled? Hopefully you can see that. That's from a wash, and it could look better, but it still looks pretty good, so I'm okay with it. The problem with this is it's solid plastic. There's no hollow areas at all, and it's not a very light plastic. So when you put it on the figure, it pulls the head up, always. And the head itself, it pegs on. There's a nice snap to it when it pegs on, but once it's on, it's really loose on top of this ball peg. And just like the other recent figures, it's really high on the ball peg. So there's a big gap in there, and you can see the ball peg, and the head is just super floppy on that. So that's a really serious problem, because you're not going to be able to pose the figure very well unless you lean the peg all the way forward, and then the head kind of just sits back, and it's going to be awkward. So that's a problem for me. I don't like the floppy neck peg at all. That's an issue for sure. The body, standard ball hinge shoulders, no bicep swivel. The swivel is in the elbow where we have the hinge. The wrists swivel and hinge. So that's okay. The paint's not great. It doesn't really match over here or over here. So either side, not the best. This pinkish, metallic, purplish paint looks really good. Some of the paint jobs are okay. Some are not so great. On the torso, it's generally okay. We do have some silver popping through though. The abdomen looks pretty good. The legs are really sloppy though. I've seen some where it's even worse than mine. But you have, like on this side, we have the pink overlaying the purple. On this side, we have silver popping through all the way. Just really uneven paint job. My calf right here, the calf on this one, and the thigh, I don't know if they tried to touch it up or what, but that looks really bad. I know it's metallic, so it might be kind of hard to see, but it looks like it's just been rubbed off and someone tried to brush it back on, so it's real heavy and gloppy looking, and then there's silver popping through on both sides. It's just really not good. The line work is not good, so that's disappointing. Luckily, it's easy enough to overlook when you're just posing the figure. You're not going to necessarily stare at those problems, so it's not a huge deal, but it is something to be aware of. We have the thigh swivel. The hips don't go too far to the side, but they go pretty far forward. There's the swivel. Double jointed knees. You can see some silver popping through there on the knee again. Then the ankles have the hinge and the ankle rocker. She does have heels, so it'll take some work to pose her, to get her to stand properly, especially with this hair. She's going to need to go on some sort of a display, standard display base, or you will never get her to stand up properly unless you lean her completely forward and try to balance her, but there's no real reason to pose her like that. So You know, it's a really good figure in some regards. It's a little disappointing in others. I'm going to say I recommend it just because the sculpt work is good. Everything looks good other than some paint issues and then that neck issue, but it's still probably worth picking up if you want a Medusa figure. Before we go, she stands, maybe I said this already, I don't know, 6 3/4 inches tall, so she's a little bit tall, maybe a little bit too tall, but again, I do like the figure overall. It just has some pretty serious issues here and there. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.